What's up? I'm Hansel Ilagan. I'm in section EM2 in this GELITPH class. And sa nakikita niyong title card, you can expect me to give my takeaways, insights, and reflections on the materials that have been given to me and the lessons I learned from the GELITPH class. And also after that, I was also mentioning how this class as a whole has affected me and helped me develop as a person. To start. So let's focus. Let's now move on to the first materials of GELITPH, 3 modules. Well, these 3 modules, each of them has a specific focus theme, and each of them has materials that we students need to analyze and give insights. And now my first takeaway on the first module, which is all about tradition and subversions of folktales, legends, and myths and other literatures related to them, is that tradition preserves it, and subversion helps it connect them to more people. For example, our website and a slideshow that we're in the materials help me learn more about the vast amounts of mythical creatures that are here in the Philippines. Mythical creatures, there's some folk tales. And, it fascinates me that marami sila. Tapos, each of them has their own unique traits. And, now moving on, the subversion helps them connect to more people. In what way? For example, sa 13 at sa kwento EM2, they put these mythical creatures into the modern world. And that factor alone fascinates us viewers and somehow makes them interested in these kinds of creatures. At doon nila malalaman na, traditional pala yan na ginawa. So yun, that's how they're somewhat connected. Tradition preserves it, and subversion still somehow preserves it, but it helps it connect to more people and using different kinds of ways. So let's move on. Now let's move on to the second takeaway for module 1. Is that subversion somehow challenges the single story of traditional pieces by adding a bit more depth into it, Another good example is from Kwentong Encanto again. Is that, kunwari, kapre. We all know that kapre is in the trees, in the forest, and they want to scare people that somehow enters their area. And somehow the subversion challenges it and gives it why the kapre was doing this. Yung reason na ba't siya nagtatakot is because nagtatakot ng mga tao. It's the only way the people will get scared of them, and how he will get attention from these people. And then, dahil sa modern world, puro cellphone na, wala naman talaga pumupunta sa forest na. And, the cabra's only way to do that, to gain somewhat of that feeling again, is to be a bouncer. Kung natatakot ng mga tao, kung papasok ko sila sa mga club, so basically that's it. It's fun. It's a fun way in how a subversion challenges tradition. Let's move on to the third takeaway of module 1. Is that some traditional pieces makes other people ignorant to the real issue. Okay, let me explain this more. One of the materials in module 1 is a documentary called The Aswang Phenomenon. And basically, it was a documentarist researches about the Philippines regarding the Aswang term. And one occurrence of that film is that he went to a village and he saw a sick person there, and he refuses to go to a real hospital because some traditional pieces somewhat manipulates his mind to think of some irrational superstitions. Whenever he has a sickness or something, he only goes to to a quack doctor. And everybody knows that when you go to a quack doctor, it doesn't really save you. So, you can expect for this person to be struggling and be very, very sick. Because he is ignorant to what is really going on to his life. So, somehow saddens me that some traditional basis things our people think like this. But it's bound to happen. Kadami-dami ng people sa mga tao. Kadami-dami tao sa mundo na ko siya yung mga nasa tao. So, yeah. Okay, now let's move on to Module 2. Now, Module 2 focuses on the nation and beyond. So we can expect the materials we analyze here is definitely all about our country as a whole, and the nation and our identity. Okay. Now, my first takeaway is that it's easily how our nation can persuade foreigners to what they define our country is, or our nation is that, kumari dito sa vlogs ni Nasa Daily, we, as the Philippines, has the tagline of, it's more fun in the Philippines. Okay, which is somewhat true. We have beautiful islands and good people. And that factor alone intrigued Nas Daily, and he doesn't retest it, and he enjoyed every part of it because he loved being in the islands, and he tested the generosity of people, which worked. But somewhat saddens that this tagline alone blinds the foreigners of what the country is really all about, which I can relate to takeaway 2 by relating Natsu Daily's vlogs again. This material alone can help us as a nation to be redefined. Because alam na natin lahat na Pilipinas ay marami pinagdadaanan. We're economically, physically challenged right now. In which Nas Daily definitely mentioned in his vlogs, after researching about the Philippines, he knew that 30%, I think maybe it's 30% of our country is in poverty. And that our prices in our country is cheap when compared to the US dollar. And when a vlogger said that the country is cheap, you can definitely know that the country is economically challenged. So, what he done in the end of his vlog is that he defined the Philippines as 70% fun investment. It's more than fun 100% of the time that you go here. Which is okay lang naman. And it's actually better, as it not only focuses on the good things, but all of the bad things of our country. And when we let that identity out to the whole world, they're bound for people like Nasdaq to help us to recover. Because the funny thing is that Nas Daily actually took advantage of the cheap prices to buy many supplies for the Philippine people. So I guess that is good to hear, good to see. Now for takeaway 3, in a bit more serious tone, these materials help me to remember what was erased in our nation's past. Because in a documentary film called The Kingmaker, it focuses on how the Marcos family went back to the political world of the Philippines after being somewhat exiled for a few decades because of what Marcos Sr. did. It surprises me how they took advantage of the technology of the modern world and the social media to, change the perspectives of many people, and us, the youth. Because the part of that documentary film interviews high school students and what they think about the Marxists. And they think all about the good things and not the bad things, which indicates that the Marcos family somehow and somewhat uses their power to change the minds of us Filipinos. This film, in this documentary film, helps me realize that kung ano mo ginagawa nila na pagbubura, mga utak ka that will be in vain, because materials like these help me and help other Filipinos know what they really done to us. Now let's move on to module number 3. It focuses on the theme of body and desire. Now for my first takeaway, is that the materials in these modules helps me realize how people used to feel and how to treat people that were converted to the LGBTQ community, both in the past and the present. Because everybody knows that in the past, people are definitely strict about this stuff. And when a person became gay or bisexual, we tend to treat them harshly. But now, syempre, may pa rin mga ganong klaseng tao. But, it's less strict. People can be more of themselves. Actually, for example, sa mga ads, I don't know sino gumawa ng ad na yun, pero it indicates that a father accepts his son for what he is through Facebook. So accepting the friend request, but best accepting the friend request, he accepts himself through who he is right now. That's fun. For my second takeaway from module 3 is that even though you can be yourself, there's still factors that stop you from what you want to do. For example, in the story, in the novels or short stories, there was a person that loved a man, but there were certain factors that stopped him from, what's the right word? Okay, confessing. Stop him from confessing to a proper relationship. Whether it be societal norms, being pressure from his parents, or pressure from himself. Those factors alone stop you from what you desire as. And I think it's a general term naman. Maraming mga bagay na hindi good for mga gusto mong gawa. These materials help you discover that they go. And what I knew that to stop this taking is that you need to take that big step and overcome those adversities. What's stopping you in the first place? Now, for my third takeaway in the third module is that someday people will find their communities that accept them for who they are. An example of this is in the documentary video on YouTube titled The Home for the Golden Case. And the residents in that home back then, when we were young, they were hiding their identity, hiding physically from people. Everybody knows how people treated those people of their kind harshly in the past. And now that time has passed by, they created a community where they can be themselves and do whatever they want. A quote from one of the residents named Frederica stated that right now her life is very, very fine. She's very, very happy. She has his family, and with that, she was. Also makes me happy that at least that someday I can somehow find a community that accepts what I am. Person that is energetic, likes anime, likes bowling. So I'm glad that I find that takeaway very useful. And now that the 3 modules were done, let's move on to other materials that were covered in the GELITPH class. Let's move on. I will name 3 of them, and I will give 1 takeaway to each. Let's move on. For the first event, activity, or material is finding personas to songs and poems. Because, I'm not really that inclined to literature back then. With the subject, it definitely helped me. And one of the activities there is finding personas from poems and songs. Because when I listen or read songs and poems, papasabi ko lang, uy, ang ganda ng chorus na to. Uy, ganda pakinggan. Ganda ng beat. There's something sa poems. Oh, ang touching. Hindi naman iisip ko. And with this activity, it helps me to find a bit more depth and a bit more understanding on what the message of each song and poem is trying to relate to the viewers. Now moving on to the second activity or material, and it's all about the hero's journey format that are found in stories and films. So basically, the hero's format is some kind of structure on how a story or film can be built and finished. And and some of the activities in our GELITPH class and will help let's identify each part of the story and relate it to each factor of the hero's journey format. So basically, the hero's journey format, the good context, the hero's journey format is all about a person living in an ordinary world, and then suddenly he comes through and experiences a whole new beginning, new whole adventure. He gets challenged, he adapts, he gets bosses, he gets the last boss, and then he goes back and takes an adventure. But basically, that's it. What intrigues me in this activity is that the hero's journey is not, di naman siya lagi about heroes or knights or include some usual adventure stuff na will be found in some serious films, very serious stories. Maybe nahanap din sa mga advertisements. And actually intrigues me that grabe yung variety tukol dun sa the variety of films, stories that were fun, that followed the hero's journey format. And now the third and last activity that I will be talking about is the mystery box challenge. So basically, the mystery box is that I get to choose something from the mystery box, and when I pick something, nilalabas na question, and that question tests us on what we learned about the class itself, mga ibang lessons, and if we get the right answer, get points. If we don't get the right answer, minus points. Yung maganda dito sa activity na to is that yung mga teams doon makes us become group moves with other classmates. And syempre sa college, lalo sa DLSU or UP kasi which means that when hindi kayo pipili ng subject no, and for sure hindi lahat ng mga tao doon makikita mo ulit. So yes, the mystery box game is a way to bond with more of your classmates more somehow maybe become friends. Baka maging kaibigan mo pa sila. I don't know. But yeah, Mr. Box game is all about your understanding and the bond of classmates. Now that I have tackled most of the materials that I learned in GELITPH class, I will now talk about how this class as a whole affected me academically and as a citizen. That's it. Academically, this subject helps me to understand a bit more of the literatures found in our country. It helps me to think deeper and be more of a critical-minded person. It helps me to think outside the box. It helps me to find the real meaning of the messages that some literatures are trying to tell. Now, as a Filipino, it made me realize that literatures are created to tell a certain issue, show a certain issue in the Philippines indirectly. And in that way, they can, sa ganung paraan, ginagawa nila yun para hindi sila mahulog masyado mga governmental stuff. And us readers, by reading those kinds of literature, it helps us to know what the Philippines really like. After we know what the Filipinos really like, we fight it. We fight what's wrong and force them to be in the right place. And lastly, one of the materials that I have analyzed in the whole company, in this whole class that we're given to me, is a video called A Single Story. Basically, this single story is telling us to be more open-minded. It is to look at something on a wider perspective. Not a single perspective, but to look more and more perspectives regarding something, somewhat, or some event. I think this material will help me in my future life. Even after academic, after college, while I work. I think that the concept of the single story, the concept of rejecting this single story will definitely help. I don't know how. I think it will. It will definitely help. Now the video is almost done. So basically, my general insights on this subject is it's fun. It makes me look more into literature. So kasi di naman talaga ako, not into literature that much. And with the help of the materials, and also the teaching from my professor, it makes me more intrigued on different varieties of literature, movies, books, stories, novels, and other things related to literature. I had fun. I learned. That's definitely the most important part. And I think that's it. GELITPH helps me, exposes me to new things. And those new things, I learned from them. And I learned something. Usually try to apply them. Really thankful that, I've been applied. I'm really thankful, it's not applied, but I'm really thankful that the subject was given to me. As since freshie pa lang ako, first year, sa first term pa, you don't get to choose what our subjects are. And somehow, this subject was given to me. At first, okay, literature lang. Okay. Parang naaral ko na ito nung grade 12 senior high, but this subject is much more on a deeper scale. So I'm glad that I was in this. So yeah, thank you for watching. Bye.